two new bosses and a lot to get into. We're going to be starting out with the Shadowflame Hoyan. Now, of course, with this new boss, it's actually going to be coming with 3 different difficulties. There also is a second boss. We'll get into that after, though. You have your Nightmare, Hell, and Inferno. Just as far as the differences between obviously doing Nightmare, Hell, then versus Inferno, the biggest thing is that when you get into Inferno, there's going to be a really harsh stipulation. So in Inferno difficulty, Hoyan and Duran deal additional damage equal to 200% to constant aligned enemies, okay, or Animus. Now, Hoyan also then has a chance to produce shells with matrices of 3 lines, and this is going to be huge because this means that you'll be able to build up those full bonuses. Each shell comes with 3 different slots that can be filled with matrices, and this is basically a way for you to be able to get them boosted, is being able to clear Inferno, right? Just to kind of give that indicator. Now, we're going to jump right in talking about some of the mechanics and some of the gimmicks. I have been able to clear Inferno in about 1 minute and 7 seconds, just to kind of lay down some of those credentials. And I've tried a couple of variations as far as the comp I'm using now and alternating in and out some different things. So keep in mind that Shadowflame Hoyan is actually a disorder, which is going to be a dark type boss, right? Now, getting into some of the boss mechanics, some of the simple things that you want to take away from here, right? Will of Field is basically Shadowflame Hoyan is immune to all control effects except taunt. Very important. Now, when you look at the main thing that you have to be conscious of, which is the vicious protection. So when Shadowflame Hoyan takes direct damage, Duran, which are these 2 adds on the side of her, will share part of and counterattack the damage source / damage dealer. In addition to triggering counterattacks, they will also increases the boss corrode frequency, which is an actual ability that she will be proccing that you don't want to actually proc, and we're going to talk about as to why. So controlling the Duran is the key to winning the battle. And then, of course, again, you have that absolute counter. So both Shadowflame Hoyan and Duran deal 200% more damage to constant Animuses, and best believe it is going to be proccing. If you don't control those 2 adds, they will be hitting you a crap ton, and if they get around to hitting a constant or a light attribute unit, they're probably good as gone, right? So with that, let's go ahead and let's jump into the fight itself. Let me actually take this off of auto so we can kind of get this a little controlled. All right, so we're gonna actually rotate here real quick, and I wanna talk about the actual skills so you can get a little bit of a deeper understanding as to what's happening. Now, one thing that you actually just noticed there was that when I hit Hoyan, you've seen one of the adds come and hit me. That's the counterattack. That will happen the entire fight if you do not CC the 2 adds on the side, right? And it is important, and again, emphasizing both need to be controlled. If not, you are going to be getting hit and they're going to be building up the stack for her to be able to use her skills. So just to kind of talk a little bit about, some of the abilities that's happening. Vengeful is one of the, undispellable stacks that she's going to be building. And when this is built at a stack of 7, it will allow her to be able to proc Corrode. And it automatically gives her a turn, by the way. So that's the really important thing. But when we're looking at these skills, Agonizing Hit, single target ability, it basically has it to where Hoyan deals 400% damage to a single enemy and then gains 3 stacks of Vengeful, right? Now you also have Corrode, which this is the ability that she's building the stacks for. And it says right here at the bottom, this skill cannot be casted actively because it has to be stacked, right? It has to be built up through stacks. Now it says Hoyan will deal 450% damage to all enemies, inflicting 1 stack of corruption on them with a 60% chance to inflict a turn of silence. Now, the thing about corruption, what does corruption do, right? Corruption is actually going to be a nasty debuff that basically will stack, and each stack will make your defense go down by 12%. And once this gets high enough, she's just going to be able to just steamroll you. She's going to cleave you off of the map, basically is what's going to happen, right? So you want to try to avoid that. And so bringing some sort of cleanse also for the silence is going to be really important for units that are primarily doing the damage, especially because if that silence, hits them at the wrong time, it could literally cook your entire run, right? So just kind of food for thought there. Now you have the Vicious Drain as well. So Duran deals 250% damage to a single enemy with a 75% chance to inflict 1 turn of wound. And if Duran is not under any control effects, it will also apply 1 stack of Evil Fire to Shadowflame Hoyan. Now, just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective on what's happening here, the wound is basically an HP block, so it prevents you from being able to restore any HP. And then, of course, with them not being under that control effect, the Evil Fire is just a damage buff ability. It's just going to make Hoyan even stronger throughout the course of the fight. And so, of course, like I mentioned before, when Durand is not controlled, it will share 15% of the damage taken, and then also has a 60% chance to counterattack the attacker after sharing non-indirect damage, which I'm just going to say, let's just say 100%, because it just happens all the time. And so that's basically her abilities, right? In a nutshell, everything that she's basically going to be doing is that. And this entire fight is basically based around the premise of stunning those two ads on the side. If you can keep them locked down, you basically should be free to kind of do whatever you need to do, right? As far as, you know, your gear and things of that nature, you still need to make sure your units are built well, but that's ultimately the fight, right? So we're going to go ahead and, you know, try to run it from here. So let's see here. Boom, boom. All right, so now we're actually getting into our rotation, and we're gonna get some of those DOTs stacked right now. So this is my stunner. I decided to go with Oval, but you can use a Kraken, a CC Freeze. You can, you know, use a couple of different other units as well. There's a few options now. Now we actually were able to only stun one, so we're still gonna have one proccing. It's not really the most optimal thing you want to have happen, but it's doable. You at least want one, but optimally you want both, right? So let's actually go for the buff here. Now Hoyan gets to go. We lose some of those DOT stacks, so we're gonna go ahead and reproc some. Now we have another opportunity to try to stun here. Now in any normal circumstance, the AI would just go for the S3, but because I'm trying to make sure we clear this, we're gonna actually just go ahead and do the S2. We'll go S1 and see, we still got that one just popping off, which is not hurting me too bad right now, but again, just silence my rotator. Not the best thing to have happen. So now she's stunned, but we're doing okay, right? We're gonna stack some more DOTs here, and then we're gonna go for another stun chance. We only got one again, right? So we're getting kind of cooked on luck, but one of our next rotating turns here, we're gonna actually be able to detonate all those poisons. So that's actually not bad, right? So we're gonna go ahead and detonate here. Boom, and that's some big girl damage. We're gonna start stacking again, right? And it basically would be a rotation like this. Now, the thing is that you don't have to do a DOT detonation. The first time I did this with just my CC unit and a regular damage dealer, right? And I did that with no defense break. So if you have a defense break in the mix, this actually should be faster as long as you're controlling the ads on the side as well, right? So that's just, you know, again, this is like kind of just showing you a way of doing it. It's not the only way to be able to beat this boss, because the first way I actually beat it was not with any you know, detonation. I just went with the stuns on the two side, and then I just DPS down the middle enemy or the Hoyan, right? So very simple, nothing too complex, but again, something that's doable, right? So in reality, even if that was on auto, it probably would have still been about a minute or so. The fastest, like I said, I've done it has been about 1 minute and 7 seconds, but that was just to kind of show you guys, you know, ultimately how the run would look, and just kind of a little bit of the thought process behind what you'll be doing, right? Now, next up, we have Rengokutsu. Now, Rengokutsu is going to be an interesting Animus because he doesn't actually have in the Inferno mode a stipulating damage increase to any specific type, and we're going to talk about as to why. But this still will allow you to have the chance to produce shells with 3 matrix lines, which of course is still really important to mention. But let's go ahead and let's dive into it so you guys can get a little bit of a better idea as far as what this boss does. Now, the main thing, Rengokutsu is immune to all control effects except taunt. And then Rengokutsu also has the power to manipulate affinity, and building a team with animuses of different affinities can help you reduce survival pressure. Now, the reason why this is really important is because when you are utilizing animuses of the same attribute, he has abilities that when he is of a certain attribute, he will hit and target all of those units under that attribute, right? So this is why you want to kind of make sure your team is as mixed as possible, no more than probably 2 from one attribute, just to kind of make it simple. Now, what are some of the things that are actually happening? We're going to go ahead and jump into the fight so you guys can see it. Now, when we're looking at these skills, okay, Rengokutsu scatters fire or flames to deal 600% damage to a single enemy, and when attacking an enemy with a countered affinity, it has a 100% chance to still still 20% of their turn meter. So really important to know. Now, the gimmick behind this, and this is the biggest thing to understand, is the ascending flame. So it basically makes it to where Rengokutsu will deal 600% damage to all enemies, ignore 25% of their defense, and when attacking foes with a countered affinity will also ignore 40% of their defense and resets their turn meter. Okay. Now, after casting, it changes all allies' affinities in the order, which is going to be going from reason, which is red, odd, which is blue. You have hollow, which is green, into disorder, which is dark. And then of course you have constant, which is light, right? So that order is going to be really important for you to remember, especially when you're trying to figure out and configure teams when you're first trying to clear this. Now, you also have the dark desire passive. So each time enemies of the same affinity take a total of 4 turns, Rengokutsu deals 400% damage to those enemies and applies evil fire. So this is another reason why you don't want to technically have a ton of units that are of the same attribute, because they are basically turn sharing. So that's another thing that you have to be considerate of. Now, evil fire is basically something that will stack, and with each stack, it raises the effect of damage taken by 20%. So that can get kind of out of hand if you let that stack way too much. Now, the other thing here you have is the Tailspin Corruption. So it deals 600% damage to a single target with a 75% chance to inflict silent for 1 turn, prioritize targets with a countered affinity, and then doubles the duration against countered targets, right? So again, that's kind of like the whole gimmick to this boss, is that if you are at the attribute disadvantage when the attribute of this boss changes, then you're going to get cooked with a double up basically of that ability. Now, for the last thing here, you have the evil fire, and it deals 450% damage to all targets with a 50% chance to inflict 2 turns of attack down, and it has a 70% chance to additionally inflict 2 turns of defense down on counter targets. Okay, so again, you get either just the attack down, or if you're at that, affinity disadvantage, you then will also get a defense break on top of the fact that you already are going to be taking scale damage if there's evil fire procced on you. So the quicker you can get through this fight, the better, right? Now, again, like I mentioned before, I've done this with just regular damage dealers, but I am like the king of DOT. Not gonna lie to you guys. I think some of my most renowned beta clears have been with DOT. So we're gonna go ahead and just go through this fight so you guys can kind of see it. And the main thing is that we just want to be kind of, again, targeting the boss, rotating and manipulating your team as much as possible. If you have any sort of units that can push back, that's gonna be pretty huge as well. And then of course, what I'm going for here is just trying to lay down some DOT so that I can make this fight much quicker with the stacking. And again, you can just do your standardized, defense break into like a cleaver if you really wanted to, but that's entirely up to what you end up focusing on your account. I think it's safe to say that with a lot of this stuff, what everyone's going to have in their account is going to be very different, right? So you have to, consider that, because otherwise you could be, kind of cooking yourself, right? And so that's like one of the things that I would say is that not everybody's gonna have starting out, like, and really honestly, even getting up to the point of this, a Dark Sania, right? This is super niche, like not everybody's gonna have a Dark Sania. You probably will be using like your starter, characters that you might be going for, so that just kind of all like varies everything. All right, so let's see. We could go for a detonate, but I just always prefer to let the boss kind of kill himself at this point. And we can just go here. And yeah, if we get a detonate soon, then yeah, that guy's GG. But one thing you'll notice is that every time, like if you even look at the damage that's happening here, I have 2 stacks of that evil fire right now on both my Chiaki and also my Freya. And if you notice, they both are the same attribute. So you start to see the pattern where if you are of an attribute that's being shared, you get punished really hard. But the pressure isn't as bad. Even when you're looking at my Dark Sania, he hasn't gotten to a disorder yet. So or now he's on disorder. So now she'll actually get targeted. But before then, she wasn't any of these other attributes, so she wasn't a focal point. But these 2 definitely are getting punished, because not only is it the attribute change that's going to be DPSing you down, but it's also when that same attribute uses a total of 4 turns. So really important stuff to mention, right? So boom. All right, so let's see here. We could go for a debuff extension and just let this thing kill itself, really, right? So now you'll see the Dark Sania got targeted, and that's because the attribute of Rengokutsu is actually now disorder, right? So let's actually see if it'll shift again. He's gonna get another turn in like 2 seconds. Let's go for the AoE here. I don't think it's gonna push him back. All right, there we go. Let's see, boom. And yeah, it looks like he stays perma in this because that's actually the last one that he goes into. So he just stays as a dark unit, which is, you know, fine. All right, so now here we should be able to, wow, okay, never mind. I purified it. Get me out of here. See, this is why purified pets are so huge. Boom. And then into the detonate, right? So a minute and 11 seconds. In reality, if that was on auto, obviously it would have, you know, possibly been a little bit quicker. But again, I'm just trying to make sure that you guys actually can see where some of the gimmicks are coming into play. Now, I want to give that disclaimer, guys, that this is from a super in-game standpoint. I'm going to be doing a playthrough. Obviously, we're going to be playing with you guys on the final beta. That's going to be accessible to everyone. And we're going to actually be going into these bosses with, you know, whatever we're working up on those accounts, right? But I wanted to make sure that I had some videos out so that you guys could see what the new bosses were like, just understanding the gimmicks, because again, this is a super in-game display of me just like decimating it. It is not going to be this easy when we are starting fresh, I promise you, okay? So this is basically more of like a dev showcase in a sense versus it actually being like, this is how you want to fully do it at like, say, early game into mid game, right? So that's just kind of that. So yeah, guys, that's basically going to be the 2 new bosses that are coming into the game. Some of their gimmicks, obviously, which I felt like was really important to mention, but we're going to have other videos going over some of the other bosses that are pre-existing. And that's going to be something that I'll have rotating out probably around the time that we get into the beta being accessible to everyone, so that you guys can get a little bit more deeper into understanding each of the gimmicks, each of the boss's weaknesses, and some of the units that you can actually bring into there. So yeah, guys, that's basically going to be that. Hope that you enjoyed this, everyone. Stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.